Hi everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to episode number 19 of Web Analytics TV.
Whoosh! Yeah.
That's the ninja chalk we do for all the
That's
analysis ninjas that we're trying to create in the world. All right, so these are all the questions that you all asked us, and we're going to answer them today in a rapid fire fashion. We're very excited about this episode because we've got some really great questions.
Actually, there's some good questions.
Really great questions, tough ones. So
tough one for you. Let's start off, Avinash.
Darn it.
The new EU cookie law will come into effect towards the end of May. How will this affect Google Analytics on my website? Is there anything Google are doing about it? This is from David Whitehouse in North Yorkshire, UK.
Yeah, so it's June 2nd, is it? What date is today? So May has passed already. I wanted to mention that Google, as well as other companies in the internet space, who provide analytics tools, do comply with all local laws. And so our team is evaluating all the requirements, and if there are adjustments required, all that stuff is happening right now. Stay tuned to the Google Analytics blog, where you'll hear more information if there are changes and how this might impact your tracking and etc. But at the moment, that's all sort of I'll say on this, and we'll move on to the next question, which is for you, Nick.
Okay.
And this is from Ayana in Bangalore, India.
All right.
Continuing from a question, it would be great if Google Analytics allows multiple conditions for setting up goals. I'd asked in Web Analytics TV number 17, can we have a goal with criteria visitor visited ABC page and clicked on an event XYZ? Thanks again. So this sounds like a goal, but more like a segment.
A segment, yeah.
Yes.
So this is actually a great question because a lot of people get confused with what segments do and how goals are applied. So currently in the product, you can either have a goal match on an actual URL or an event or some engagement, but you can't have all of those together. But when you set up a goal, what you're doing is you're saying when somebody in their session meets this criteria, we'll increment the goal by 1. And that's what we're reporting against. Now, what we have is a feature called advanced segmentation. And what that does is you can set up a condition. You could say how many people went to this page and purchased this item and spent so much time on the site. And when they meet that criteria, Google Analytics will only match those sessions and then apply reports across that subset of sessions. So if you apply those advanced segments to just the standard visits report, you're going to get the same outcome as if you're applying a goal. So advanced segments is really a more flexible way to get goal conversions. And what's really nice is that once you set up a goal, you can't get historical data. It's only data going forward.
Correct.
But advanced segments is powerful because you go historically and you can get retroactive data, so you can compare trends from last year to this year. And you don't have to do all the cumbersome setup. It's all ad hoc. So use advanced segments, and that should get you pretty far.
And the cool thing, actually, one of my favorite things about following this recommendation is then I can apply it to my keyword report and understand what are the keywords that these people came on, that segment of people who went to ABC page and clicked to XYZ event. What were the internal site search queries they did? What are the broader in the business goals that they met? So this idea that it becomes this really super flexible thing, it's not squirreled away in one report, but you can apply it to all other reports.
All the reports, yeah.
Truly understand the behavior of these people. That's why sort of advanced segmentation is such a favorite of mine.
Yeah, great.
Another question for you, Nick. This one comes from Kaz in Las Vegas, Nevada, not very far away.
Yeah,
and we love Las Vegas.
Love it.
Viva Las Vegas. Is there a way in Google Analytics to track user interaction with a calendar? Take an airline or a hotel website. Is there a way to track the demand for departure and arrival dates, i.e. how many times people did a search for departure date 2 weeks from today? It's a great question.
It's a great question. So there's different ways to set this up in Google Analytics, and it really depends on the exact report that you're looking for. But in this case, looking for the departure date 2 weeks from today, what you can use is event tracking.
Exactly.
And event tracking is the way you can send 3 arbitrary string values to analytics. In this case, you could send the first starting date and then the end date within the calendar. That was submitted within the calendar for a travel time. If they're doing return flight and so forth. You could send that, and once that's collected in Google Analytics, you can pull a report for these events and match, for a particular day, show me all the events or the dates that was 2 days from today. And you can do that within custom reports. So using events and custom reports can get you that data.
Can I, and I think I can answer this, another interesting question, which is, do people who search for flights from 1 week from now tend to buy more, or people who search for flights 1 month from now, do they buy more? I mean, that would be
Absolutely.
a really interesting
Right.
question to answer.
Right. Following up from the previous question, you can apply these events data in an advanced segment and then segment all of these. So you can set that up as a effective conversion using this departure date. So it does it's some manual work to set up, and then in the reports, you might be a lot of work to do this, on an ongoing basis. So here's a great place where you automate all that time-consuming work using our API.
Of course.
You get a partner to help you set it up an API. Every day you come in, you'll get this report.
Exactly. No, I love the fact. So once you figure out the kinds of questions you want to get answered, boom, API it, everything is.
Do it once in the UI, figure it out, and then automate it.
Incredible.
So here's a great question for you from Vester in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I've configured site link extensions in AdWords. At present, AdWords and Analytics lack of a conversion count column for site link exits. Should I tag the URLs configured in site links with UTM parameters? Will these conflict with AdWords auto tagging?
Yeah, so the recommendation we have is definitely do not mix in auto tagging and manual tagging, because it will cause conflicts, etc., and not have your data be reported correctly. So that's not what we recommend. But our good friend Joost de Vaak from Holland has written a very nice article that helps you understand how to do this tracking in an optimal way with Google Analytics. I want to link to our friend Joost so that you can read his blog post and understand how you can do this better. So you'll find this in the show notes on the Google Analytics blog. Please visit that, and you'll know exactly how to deal with this.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Aaron in Tasmania, Australia, for you, Nick.
Okay.
And the question is, I find it very difficult to create custom reports that show what traffic sources are leading to individual product conversions. Our e-commerce conversions are are for different products, financial applications like saving, lending, etc. So how can we go about doing this, Nick?
Right. So this is a great question. I think it follows up from some of our other answers. So there's a common theme here. In this case, you need more flexibility with goals. And the solution always is to use an advanced segment, because they replicate very similarly with the features, what we're doing with goals.
Are you saying that all ninjas use segments?
All ninjas use advanced segments, absolutely. So in this case, what you can do is you can create an advanced segment for any of the items people are purchasing. Then in the backend for Google Analytics, we'll match only the sessions where people actually purchase those.
I see.
And then for those sessions, you can apply that to any report. So for example, you can apply that to the traffic sources report and look at visits. And anytime you see a visit from that source, you know that they've already made a purchase of that item within that session.
Perfect.
So it's a very flexible way to do the reporting. And of course, you might do it with one item in an advanced segment to get the traffic sources. You might have hundreds of items. So this is where the API comes in again, another plug, to automate all of that. You do it at night, you come in, you get your data, analysis ninjas.
Ready to go.
Absolutely.
In fact, in this case, I think two things are getting confusing. One thing is that you want to look at a certain set of metrics, and that's why you're creating a custom report. And what you want to do is you want to first create the advanced segment of the people who might have purchased a certain product, and then apply it to a custom report, and boom, that can be one place you go, get it emailed to you, etc. I mean, just happy birthday all around.
Great question. So the next question is for you, Avinash. This is from Scott Hamilton in New Zealand. I'm a web developer, and I initially set up one analytics account with profiles for each client's website. I've heard that this is not the best practice, but can only see people with the same problem and no solution. What do we do, and what is the best practice for us?
Yeah, so Scott, the very simple scenario is that for each client or business entity that you have, you want to set up a different account. And then, depending on your needs and requirements, you can create additional profiles for that account and do all kinds of magical things with Google Analytics. But the best practice is create a bunch of accounts rather than having a bunch of profiles connected to one account. So different account for every business entity, and then you can create many profiles for each of that entity, and everything will be hunky-dory.
Right. I think that's the confusion, is that when you've set up an account on behalf of somebody, you really want that person to have ownership of the account.
Correct.
And so that person should be the owner of the account and give you access to do all the analysis to help them out. That way, each of your clients would have their own separate accounts.
Exactly. And also, I mean, it helps out when you want to do link with AdWords and all kinds of other things. It really helps out.
Yeah, that's where it escalates to. Okay.
So here's a question for you from closer to home. It's from Phil in Pasiala, California. Visalia. So darn it. Is it close by? And it says, my Amazon web store has security restrictions that prevent me from using GA subdomain tracking. Is there a workaround? Would setting my main site's www.bioworldusa.com tracking cookie to my web store subdomain store.bioworldusa.com work? And I think
so this is a little bit difficult to answer because there's many different scenarios here, but specifically for the one that you mentioned, we'll answer that. And there is a solution. Again, Google Analytics uses first-party cookies, and first-party cookies can only be set and tied to the domain that sets them. So in this case, you have subdomains and root domains. You can set the cookie to be .bioworldusa.com,
right.
And that should be able to be read both by the www as well as the store dot. So there's a method called set domain name. You use that method. We'll link to the documentation how to set it, and that way the cookie can be read across both domains. The visitor will be tracked across both domains, and everything will work.
Wonderful, fantastic.
Great. So next question here is for you, Avinash. This one comes from Bert Brunkrieft. In Veenendaal, Netherlands.
I think you got that one. Good.
Yeah, I was just there the other day. So I'm using an Ajax search from which returns results while typing. I can track internal searches with gac.push track page view and then their query parameter. What is the best approach to track the final search query and not the queries leading to it?
Yeah, so Bert, actually, you are using a more complicated methodology to collect the internal site search data.
Yeah, keep it easy.
Keep it, exactly, KISS, right? And so our approach, we have built in internal site search tracking into Google Analytics, very sophisticated, comes with 6 standard reports which help you understand bounce rate for your search results, which pages people are searching on, how long do they stay, is the query refined, etc. I mean, it's a beautiful internal site search reporting in Google Analytics. And in order for you to use that, you don't have to use GAQ push or anything else. Go to the admin setting, specify the parameter that is where you're storing the site search query. Once a person hits the search button on your website, everything just magically automatically happens for you. When you go and look at the internal site search reports, metrics, new data, everything is done. So rather than using this method, we encourage you to use the standard built-in method in Google Analytics, and it will give you what you're looking for, which is the final search query.
And just to clarify again how that works, so you have the Ajax search on your site, somebody will refine and the results will change automatically. There's no tracking you do there. Rather, when somebody clicks the actual result, it takes them to a page on your site.
Perfect.
That page will have the query parameter, and that's what you specify in analytics.
Exactly. And then and it's a 2-second time. I mean, just 2 seconds, yeah. Here's a question for you, Nick, all the way from Philadelphia by Graham. And Graham asks, hi, Avinash. Oh, sorry. Hi, Nick.
Yeah, there you go.
I run 2 sites, and both use GA. One site has ads to the other where conversions happen. Is there a way to combine the data from that account so I can view the keywords from site A which drive conversions to site B? So in this case, somebody searches on Google, goes to site A,
which is tracked by one profile,
and on that are links to site B, and they want to know that the
site B is on a different profile.
Yeah. And what they want to know is that the word that they searched on Google was Nick Rocks, and that Nick Rocks led to site A, where the person clicked and went to a different site and they converted there. What is the best way to track that the word Nick Rocks is the highest conversion?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
that's got to be the highest conversion.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Or awesome. Nick is awesome would be a contender in that. So in this case, the current best practice solution here is to track both of the sites in one profile. So you might need to do some cross domain tracking, but make sure that it's correctly visitors tracked across both profiles. And so the way it would happen is somebody would search, they'd come to this one profile for both sites, and you'd be able to get all the referrals. And then when they clicked your house ad that pointed to the other site, you track that click as an actual event. So that way you can see how many people had this event and then map that back into the referrals using advanced segments.
Excellent. Fantastic.
So question for you here, Avinash. This one's from Brandon, Chicago, Illinois. We know where that is.
Of course.
Hello, the GA documentation is unclear about e-commerce tracking across domains.
Let me interrupt and say GA documentation is the responsibility of Nick's team.
We're making it better. If I have a site A.com and a third-party shopping cart X.shop.com, what are the parameters I need for async to not show A.com as a referral site and properly track? Thanks.
So it's a good question by Brandon. And actually, if you implement cross-domain tracking optimally, this should not be a problem. And it's a slightly complex answer how to do exactly that. But we're going to link in the show notes as to how you can implement cross-domain tracking optimally. So please refer to the show notes on the Google Analytics blog.
Yeah.
Also, cross-domain and subdomain tracking, we covered that earlier in the session. They're actually quite complicated. They are great, and you get incredibly great amounts of data. So we highly recommend that you engage with one of the Google Analytics certified partners at GACP, who can help you understand your requirements and very quickly help you implement this and be on your way, rather than have to fumble around for months and months. So that's another path you could use, although we're going to link to exactly how you can do this yourself if you want to do it.
So the answer, so his question was that the GA documentation is unclear. And our answer is we're going to link to documentation.
Which Nick's team will update first?
What an answer. All right.
So here's one all the way from Tasmania in Australia for you, Nick.
Wow.
And Aaron asks, please explain if there's an obvious way for determining which data is to be sampled. I've noticed that it is likely when applying filters you cannot go back longer than 1 month before sampled. New GA seem to sample goals more often, etc., etc. I actually think that, Aaron, some of the things that you're saying here are actually not true. But we'll have Nick walk through the sort of the criteria, because actually you can go on my own blog where I get 100,000 visits, not that many. I can go actually months and it doesn't sample the data. So it's a complicated set of criteria that gets applied when sampling happens. And so Nick, what's that?
Yeah, sampling is a tricky subject because we have little documentation on it. So generally when you're in the UI and sampling occurs, we'll pop up a little message that says, this report is accessed in fast access mode.
Correct. AKA
sampling.
Correct.
So that has never, we've just changed the terminology, but that has not gone away. One thing is to keep in mind is like all the standard reports in Google Analytics, all the reports that you see when you log in, you don't customize, there's no sampling happening with those. We pre-calculate all those reports. It's only when you're doing a custom report sometimes, which we haven't pre-calculated, or you're doing advanced segment, which we always have to then go back to the original data and reprocess all your information. And to speed up the reports, we only look at 500,000 sessions and process that, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But over like a year, you might have a lot more traffic.
Of course.
So it's all based on the date range and the number of sessions that we're processing. So in that case, if it's over 500,000 sessions, we'll then sample the data and return that result and have that little criteria in the UI. That says,
and the reason is that if we want you to have a good enough answer very quickly in seconds, because with some tools you could run the exact same query and you'll be waiting hours or until the next day to get an answer. And what we want to do is statistically sample the data, so mathematically you'll get a very good answer very, very quickly. And that's primarily the reason sampling exists in Google Analytics.
There's one interesting point here. It says, this is for like the ninja answer here. New GA seems to sample goals more often. Well, one thing that we did change was that we used to sample at the profile level, and now we sample at the web property level.
Ah, I see.
So if you have multiple profiles attached to one web property, it might have more sampling. You might see more sampling.
A little bit more, right. So be aware of the nuance.
Very small nuance there. Okay. Question for you, Avinash. This is from Todd from Syracuse, New York. I've been using PageSpeed for the last month, and I'm only seeing Google Chrome and Internet Explorer samples being taken. Can you provide an in-depth understanding of the browser support for this feature?
Yeah, so no in-depth here. I'm kidding. So any browser, any modern browser, I should say, that supports the HTML5 navigation timing interface will be used in order to sample the data. And this includes IE with the Google toolbar. So in those scenarios, sampling will happen and it will collect the data. At the moment, we only sample 10% of the pages on your website. So if you have a site that is small site, and then it just takes a while to get all different kinds of browsers to be sampled. Or I noticed that on my own blog, there is a much heavier concentration of people who use Chrome and Firefox. I think together they combine greater than 80% of the traffic. And in that case, as the sampling happens, it just takes a little while to get sufficient sort of IE samples. Just sort of, that's unique to me. So if you just hang back for a little while, you'll see that it will sample everything.
Yeah, and I think in the for like Firefox, I think the latest build has support for this.
Yes.
And so I think only in the future, like as we move to the future,
Exactly.
more and more browsers will support this, and the data will become richer.
Exactly. But what is more important is sort of less that by every browser I want to know, more that on average, what is the load time? Because it
Yeah.
affects SEO, it affects so many things. So use the data that you're getting is very, very powerful. Find out the heaviest pages, kill the things that are causing that page latency,
Absolutely.
and your users will be happy. And of course, across all search engines, you will also start to see some benefits.
I think it's a really interesting report to use this with geography.
There you go.
Because most people think only U.S. visitors come to their site, and they don't. Once they look at analytics, they're like, oh wow, I've seen people from Mozambique and from China, and then think about their experience, and that's something most people don't consider. So
Exactly.
the latency can be significantly higher from people in other countries.
Yes, yes. And for businesses, like more than half of my traffic is international, like
Oh, wow,
60%.
yeah.
And especially if you're running a business, then you want to look into caching and all kinds of other CDN options or other things to make sure that if you've got a lot of people coming to your website from India, China, Africa, that you figure out solutions so that their experience is very fast.
There you go. Great question.
A question for you, Nick, from David Edoja in London. And David asks, hi guys, I'm using the GA API
Yes.
to extract data into an in-house system. However, though I'm able to run queries for my goals by numbers 1 through 20 and get results back, how do I also extract the name of each goal as created in Google Analytics back through the API? It's a good one.
It's a good question.
Yes.
So we actually officially support 2 APIs, and they're slightly different. One of them is called our Data Export API, and that's what you're most likely using to pull out all this performance data, the calculated data that we process. But there's also a whole other set of data, which is configuration data, which is how a goal was configured, which is the name of the account, the name of the profile. And that's all accessed through the management API. And in fact, if you look at our docs, we'll put a link to it. There's a whole, what we call a feed, or a way to request only goal-specific information.
Wonderful.
So not only can you get the names, you can see how many of them are active, are they destination or engagement goals, all the steps, everything you could possibly need to know about goals is available for you.
Excellent. So David, you should be a happy camper now.
So question for you, Avinash. This is from NT Boss in the Philippines. Hi guys, just watched your 18th episode. That's great.
Yay.
I have a follow-up question. If I were to take the GAIQ test, will it include the GA5 interface?
Yeah, so at the moment, as you know, as most of our listeners know, we have both the interfaces live.
Yeah.
In fact, the default is still the old interface. You can click on the new version to switch to GAV5. And we're ironing out a bunch of things with V5. But so as we do that, and as V5 gets closer to becoming the standard interface through which you'll access analytics, we will be updating the GIQ lessons in order to make sure that they reflect what is the tool that you're going to be using. So at the moment, because the default is the old, the videos currently still reflect the old interface, but we're going to change that, absolutely. Here's a question for you from James Brown in United Kingdom. Hi guys, now that the hour of the day is added to the new version of Google Analytics, I want to know if there is an overview page of the hours that people visited my website without just using the specific hour or period within advanced segments.
Yeah, this is actually a great question. So actually, it's not available as a standard report in Google Analytics.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? This is a great feature request. But this data has been available through the API for a long time. And actually, I was just at a couple user conferences in Europe.
Oh.
And I was actually showcasing a solution from Next Analytics, which is an Excel plugin that actually has pre-canned reports that show you a heat map of when in the day, what time of day,
goodness.
by date, by week, are most people coming to your site. So it's actually, there's solutions already being built for these reports that don't exist into GA yet that you could use by third parties. So we'll link to the solution and the standard report, and you can take a look.
Yeah, we can do a screenshot. I want to see what the heat map looks like.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
That's really nice, yeah.
So question for you, AK, from Graham in Philadelphia. Hi, Nick and Avinash. When I look at the clicks from search engines and webmaster tools, the numbers differ widely from the visitors in my GA account. What's the reason for that?
There are two primary reasons, Graham. The click data comes from a completely different source that's computed differently, and the visits data comes from Google Analytics, which is on your website and collecting data, so the different sources matter. The other thing to also understand is that clicks are not visits, in the sense that Nick could come to my blog 10 times, and that's 10 clicks. He did 10 searches in Google Analytics, on Google, or Bing, or whatever. But that could all be within one visit.
Right.
So because of this definition difference as well between the metrics, you will notice a difference. But those are the two primary reasons. So use the clicks that you get in Webmaster Tools as general guidance, and of course compare and contrast with your competitors or the other pieces of data you have, and then use the visits data to understand how people are coming to your site and behaving differently. So that's how I would use it.
Great answer. So it was such a great answer. Here's another question for you, Avinash. This is from Aaron in Tasmania, Australia. Even using ROI and business value, it's still difficult to convince businesses when it comes to opportunity costs or capturing missed opportunities. Hard, but what size of staff by income do you think a business has to be to employ a web analyst?
So I really think that any business of any size should be using web analytics, whether you use Google Analytics or you use Yahoo Analytics or any other analytics tool, paid or free, because it is only through the use of the data that you'll understand what you're doing that is working and what you're doing that is not working. If you're a really small size business, then it can be somebody's part-time job to look at the keyword referrals report so you can optimize SEO, to look at domain referring domains to your website so you can build new relationships. You can look at the top pages and the goals to ensure that you are actually delivering against the business objectives you set for yourself. And somebody with just sort of 15–20% of their time, a marketer, if you will, or a business owner, can do these simple reports all by themselves. If you're a medium-sized business, then we are starting to see in the realm of you having to have at least a person with a major responsibility as web analytics, or at least a large part of their job as web analytics. When you come to the large-sized businesses, of course, you're beginning to get into more sophisticated things, and you've got to have somebody dedicated to it. There isn't a set sort of rule, but a few years ago when I was working in my former company, having started with a paid tool that wasn't doing much and charging us $250,000 a year, I came up with the 1090 rule for investing in people. And the 1090 rule simply states, they've got $100 to invest in making smart decisions from your web-based business, invest $90 in people, and invest $10 in the tools that you'll use. So use that as guidance as you go through the phase of medium and large. If you're small, I understand it can be hard to invest 90% of the resource in a person because you might not even have $100 to invest. Right. But as you evolve, use the 1090 rule as a criteria.
It's an interesting question on economics, because now that Google Analytics is free, traditionally you'd spend a lot of money to buy a web analytics package.
Correct.
And then you have to figure out where do you put the money, in the product or in the people.
Yes.
But analytics is free. People are assuming the people are free, but they're not.
They're not. In fact,
there's a lot of value in Google Analytics that we're making for free. So
in fact, what I have said frequently on my books and blog and Twitter, everywhere, is that you shouldn't think of Google Analytics as free. Because the first thing is you'll need somebody inside your company to analyze the data. Now that's not the cost of Google Analytics, but the cost of somebody analyzing data. Whether you use Omniture, Web Trends, Core Metrics, Yahoo, you have to invest in that person. So the person investment is always required. It's never free. The other thing I also recommend is that we've got a lot of complex questions in this video. And I always say that the initial implementation of Google Analytics is also not free, because I say hire one of the consulting practitioners that we have, the consultants we have authorized ones, and give them some amount of money so they'll implement it correctly in the first time. So the person you hire to analyze the data can jump up and be up and going very quickly. So in that sense, don't think of Google Analytics as free. You don't pay for the tool. You don't pay for this world-class tool. You'll pay for the person who'll analyze the data. And initially, at least, you'll pay for somebody, an external consultant, who can get you up and running very quickly. And I think that mental model and that total cost of ownership model, you'll see that it does cost some money, and you will be finding insights much, much, much faster.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here's a question for you, Nick, from David in Vancouver. And David asks, I get form fills on 4 landing pages and all go to one thank you page, and I have 4 corresponding funnels in Google Analytics. At the funnel visualization page, goal option drop down. When the clicked shows same completion number next to each goal, how come? So basically 4 landing pages are going to the same thank you page, and he's created 4 different funnels, but Google Analytics would think of it as one funnel.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, the goal conversion there's only one success criteria that you're putting in analytics to match for actual conversion. And so regardless of how you hit that success event, whether it's coming from landing page A, B, or C, or D, that number will always be the same. So that's why you're seeing them all the same, because the same number of people are getting to that final destination page.
Exactly.
There is one feature in the funnel navigation. When you set up a funnel, you can require the first step. And then in the funnel navigation report, you can start seeing differences between the number of people who completed the funnel. That's something to look at. But that's specific to that report and not to the rest of the reports.
I like that. That's very nice.
Great. So here's a question for you, Avinash. This is from Robert C. in Henderson, Nevada.
Not very far away?
No, right by Vegas. My friend lives there. Anyway, please explain how visit duration is calculated by GA. Am I correct that if a visitor lands on a page on my site spending 3 minutes reading it, then exits to a different site URL, the visit duration on my site is 0 seconds because no other pages were viewed?
Yes, a good question, Robert. All web analytics tools work in the following manner. You come to the website and a hit is recorded with a timestamp, that the fact that you arrived at page loaded. Then what the tool is looking for, any tool by the way, is the next hit that will tell the web analytics tool how long you spent on that first page. So for example, you landed on the first page, you clicked on a link, went to a second page. Now it will take those 2 timestamps, you arriving, you clicking on another link to go to another page on the same website, subtract the 2 numbers, and that's how time on a page is computed. If you come to a website, you just stay there for 20 minutes and you go away, that second hit is missing. And that's why the web analytics tool cannot then compute how long you spent on that page. There are hacks to get around this if you would like to. Just searching for computing real time on site in Web Analytics or Google Analytics will find you those links. But we'll also link to an article on my blog that I had written about how time on site and time on page is computed. It goes through various scenarios, include tab browsing, and you have a much better understanding of how time is computed in Web Analytics tools. The next question is from Vincent Seng in Taipei, all the way from Taiwan. And it says, where can I find the e-commerce tracking ad_trans city data in Google Analytics?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Mysterious question.
Yeah, I know. And the funny thing is, it's really, I've never heard anybody ask this question before,
Wow.
even though the answer is completely different than what most people think. So to get this information in analytics, we have a feature called a secondary dimension. So in any of the standard e-commerce reports, click the little box, select the city, and we'll show you not only the purchases, but we'll show you that by city. And so this city is actually coming from our IP geo map lookup. It's not coming from what you're sending us the data. And the reason this was actually done a while ago in a product decision around this was that if you send us city information, it's probably not going to look like what we understand a city. Like you might misspell it, or might not be capitalized, or might be the wrong place. So instead of what you send us, we actually don't report that. Rather, we look at the IP geo map, and then that way, in all the reports when you're segmenting by geo, we can always give you the same number.
Excellent, excellent. And the question for you, Nick, another one from Shane in Melbourne. And Shane asks, how can I stop other sites from using my analytics code? In my all traffic sources report, I can see a few spam sites generating fake traffic as referrals. This is an easy problem to solve, Nick.
Right, it's a little bit difficult.
Oh, I see.
Well, I mean, there's a different little layers to this about what data is being faked. At the end of the day, Google Analytics only looks at the web property ID, that's the UA number, and that's what differentiates data going from my account versus your account. So in that case, I could take your code potentially and put it on different sites, and I could track all my other sites. So usually what people do is set up a profile filter to only include data from host names that they actually own. And that way, you're not getting arbitrary data from other sites.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was like a simple thing. And we'll link to how to do that. Yeah, exactly.
No problem.
One last question for you, Nick, all the way from Denmark by Soho. And the question is, on some pages on my website, I use virtual URLs instead of real URLs of a page. But in custom reports, these pages appear with the real URLs and not the virtual URLs. Why is that? And is there a way to see the virtual URLs in custom reports?
Yeah,
so complicated.
It's so complicated that without the details, it's hard to actually tell you. I think we might have a solution, or an explanation why this is happening. But maybe you could write to us, and that way we can get more details, and then we can help
right back to you.
Let you know what's going on.
There you go. So before we close, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank Brad from California, who asked a question. It was a quality question about visitor reports, and Brad, we're going to send it off to the team, make sure they're aware of it. We've got some really good feature requests from Jim C. in the United States, from CJ Cuniff in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and From Mario in Hamburg in Germany. Thank you, Mario. It's a really good question about returning visitors, feature request. And those are all the feature requests we have. So thank you very much. We're going to send those off to the team. And before we go, one last final thing. We got to get a ninja of the episode. And Nick has chosen Aaron from Tasmania in Australia. So Aaron, if you're listening, you're the ninja of the episode, analysis ninja. Email me and we'll send you a signed copy of my book, Web Analytics 2.0. It's easy to find my email address. So with that, thank you very much for listening to our delightfully tough episode.
Great questions this time.
Please click on the link to go to our moderator page where you can ask questions or rate other questions for our next episode.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much and happy analytics.